2, why? Before we look into that, clearly we need to have answered the previous question to answer this question. Namaste everyone, this is Avanti, and today we are going to solve some of the common questions on the SAT exam. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be looking at College Board's SAT Practice Test 1, which is available for free online. I will link it in the description box below so you can take a look at it as well. And we're just going to be going through those questions. If you haven't already seen my video on taking the SAT, I'm going to link it up here. And I really want you to remember that the SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, jo bhi ho, that's not a test of your intelligence. It's a test of honestly how well you can take an exam. So the more practice you do, the better. And today we're going to outline some of the most common questions and maybe some strategies on how to approach them. So I hope you find this helpful, and let's get to it. So there are 3 main sections to the SAT. There is the reading section, the writing section, and the math section. Let's start with the reading. I feel like a lot of people, particularly in India, have an issue with the reading section the most because our education system does not emphasize critical reading as much. So let's just look at some of the important questions and how to approach them. So in the reading section, you'll find a few different types of questions. Let's start with the first one. The first one is what they like to call words in context. There will be a word which they'll ask you the meaning of, but you won't understand the meaning unless you understand the context. So let's look at an example. So let's go to question 3 in the first reading section. This is for the passage that is from Lydia Minatoya's The Strangeness of Beauty. So question 3 says, as used in line 1 and line 65, directly most nearly means, and the answer options are frankly, confidently, without mediation, and with precision. Now you'll notice that all of these are potential meanings of the word directly. Directly can mean any of these. So we need to deep dive into the context for more. So let's go to line 1. Line 1 is, Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Okay, I mean, that gives us a little bit of insight, but in order to get more insight of the context, you should ideally read a little bit before and a little bit after. So let's go keep reading. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would she have been more receptive? Okay, clearly, directly is the opposite of approaching a go-between or following form. So maybe direct means the opposite of conforming or following the rules. Let's look at line 65 to confirm our assumption. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I asked directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. That's line 65. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval. Okay, so I've noticed in 65, there's also the same word go-between. So go-between, from my understanding, is like a middleman or somebody, to go between. So let's now go back to the question. As used in line 1 and 65, directly most nearly means frankly. That might be, being honest as opposed to that. Okay, let's keep it at the side. Confidently, maybe. Without mediation, option C seems, in my opinion, the most obvious because go-between means you have a mediator. That mediation is what they're trying to do because it's the opposite of that. And with precision. So while the others are kind of would fit, the best answer in my opinion is answer C. Okay. The next kind of question is what they like to call analysis questions, where they'll ask you to analyze a part or the whole part of the passage. So for that, let's go to question number 7 in the same passage. Question 7 says, the main purpose of the first paragraph is to A. Describe a culture, B. Criticize a tradition, C. Question a suggestion, D. Analyze a reaction. Okay, all of these could be true. We'll have to go read the first paragraph to understand that. So let's go to the first paragraph. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would she have been more receptive? Okay, so that gives us some information. Clearly, this Akira dude just came, was going anti-tradition, anti-mediation, and the questioning is, had this happened, would somebody else have been more receptive? Okay, interesting. Let's see if any of our answers are useful. Describe a culture. Okay, maybe they're describing the tradition. Criticizing a tradition. I don't know if it's criticizing necessarily because they've just talked about an example against it. Question a suggestion. Analyze a reaction. Interesting. I feel like the answer might be D, which is analyze a reaction. But let's confirm. Let's do a quick skim of the passage. Ideally, when you're doing this, you would have read the whole passage and then answered the questions, but I'm just trying to give it to you like this. You can go and look at the same test and read the passage, but here, let's do a quick skim. He came on a winter's eve is the first line of the next paragraph. She was reluctant to go to her guest. So what I'm doing right now to explain is I'm reading the first line of each paragraph just to skim the understanding, because usually that is a line that defines the rest of the paragraph. So he came on winter's eve. She was reluctant to go to her guest. Okay. Who is it at this hour in this weather? Akira. I think you should go. Akira was waiting in the entry. Madam, forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency. In the dim light, his eyes shone. Come inside. I don't want to trouble you. Congratulations. Noting the reaction, she had no idea. Okay, so I keep going through. For my end, he keeps talking about having an understanding, urgency, proposal, eager to make his point, and then he bowed and left. Okay, so with all of this, ideally I would have read it, then I'd have an understanding, but it gives me more context about this first paragraph. With all of this in mind, it doesn't seem like he's criticizing a tradition or questioning a suggestion. In fact, he's bringing a suggestion. It also doesn't seem like they're necessarily describing the culture by talking about Akira and, the guest whose home he's in. I think the correct answer is D, analyzing a reaction, because the reaction is that of Chi, who clearly was not, because the reaction in this case is that of Chi, who clearly was not receptive to Akira. The third type is what they call command of evidence questions. Let's go to a couple questions to understand that. Let's go to question 10. It says, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay, before we look into that, clearly we need to have answered the previous question to answer this question. So let's look at question 9 also. Question 9 is, why does Akira say his meeting with Chi is a matter of urgency? And that's in line 32. So let's quickly go to line 32. Line 32 says, Madam, forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency. Interesting. Let's read a little bit before and a little bit after. In the glistening surface of the courtyard's rain-drenched paving stones, she saw his reflection like a dark double. Okay, that's fine. The next is, his voice was soft, refined, he straightened, and okay, that's also fine, but it's more descriptive. Let's go a little bit down. I'm just going 2 paragraphs down. He says, I don't want to trouble you. Normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. Okay, interesting. So that gives us more information. Now let's go back to question 9. A, he fears that his own parents will disapprove of Naomi. B, he worries that Naomi will reject him and marry someone else. C, he has been offered an attractive job in another country. D, he knows that she is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. So now if you read the whole passage, which I skimmed through right before this, you'll understand that Akira is actually coming to propose to Naomi. She is Naomi's mother, and there's this whole situation. But we don't even need that information for this. I think it's very obvious because if you read down a little bit more for context, he literally said that he's been offered a job in America. So the answer here is C. He has been offered an attractive job in another country because that's the reason for his immediate urgency. Great. Now let's go to question 10. And question 10 is literally which line provides evidence for this. So the options are A, line 39. Let's read line 39. It says, I don't want to trouble you. I don't think that's right. The next is line 39 to 42. Okay, that is, normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. That was the line we used, so I'm guessing that's the answer, but let's quickly check the others. Lines 58 to 59. That is, depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. Okay, that could be a sense of urgency, but that doesn't necessarily stay why this is urgent. And line 72, I see I startled you. That doesn't necessarily mean urgency. Okay, so in my opinion, the answer is question 10, answer B, which is normally I would have done blah, 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 but I have this job in America. And as you can see that just even by finding that evidence, it helps us confirm our own answers for question 9. Now, quick tip, if you're doing this in the exam setting, firstly, you should always read the passage and then approach everything, but in the exam setting, make sure that you quickly mark off everything on your question paper and then mark the answers, so that say you messed up, say you thought another option was right, you don't have to keep erasing it and then putting it back in the bubble. So just a quick tip. Okay, so those are the 3 broad types of reading questions, but let's just do 2 more because I know this section scares a lot of people. Okay, so for the purpose of this, let's go to the next passage and page 10, question number 28. This passage is adapted from Watson and Crick's Genetical Implications of the Structure of Deoxyribonucleic Acid, which is DNA, by the way. And the question is, let's show you what the question is. Based on the table and passage, which choice gives the correct percentages of the purines in yeast DNA? And then all the answer options are numbers and percentages. Now you might be wondering, why is there math in an English section? Now let's go back and see exactly why that is. So let's do a quick scan of the first paragraph. The chemical formula of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, is now well established. The molecule is a very long chain, the backbone of which consists of a regular alternation of sugar and phosphate groups. To each sugar is attached a nitrogenous base, which can be 4 different types. 2 of the possible bases, adenine and guanine, are purines, and the other 2, thymine and cytosine, are pyrimidines. Okay, we recognize a word from that question. Let's go back. It says, which choice gives the correct percentages of the purines in yeast DNA? Aha. So what did it say? What is purines? Purines are adenine and guanine. Let's go to our table. This table has all these random things, maize, octopus, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to the yeast row. We know that a purine is adenine and guanine, and the numbers for the yeast are 31.3 and 18.7. Let's go back to the question and see. As you can see, the options are 17.1 and 18.7, 17.1 and 32.9, 18.7 and 31.3, 31.3 and 32.9. Aha, as you can see, they've tried to trick you. In the table, it's 31.3 and 18.7, but they've reversed it just so that you psychologically might choose something else. But we're smarter than that. So we're going to choose option number C. Okay, last one, super quick. Let's go to page 16 and question number 49. You'll see this often. There's always going to be a section where there's 2 different passages and they'll ask you about the relationship between the 2 passages. So this question is, which statement best describes the relationship between the passages? A, passage 2 refutes the central claim advanced in 1. B, passage 2 illustrates the phenomenon described in more general terms in passage 1. C, passage 2 argues against the practicality of the proposals put forth in passage 1. And D, passage 2 expresses reservations about developments discussed in passage 1. That's a lot of words. Okay, let's do a quick skim of the 2. Passage 1 says, follow the money, you will end up in space. That's the message from a first-of-its-kind forum on mining beyond Earth. And then there's a ton of stuff. Let's go to the last paragraph, just to understand what the intro and outro are. Companies are eyeing the iron, silicon, and aluminum in lunar soil and asteroids, which could be used in 3D printers to make spare parts or machinery. Others want to turn space dirt into concrete for landing pads, shelters, and roads. Okay, clearly mining and companies are interested in that. Great, that's passage 1. Passage 2. The motivation for deep space travel is shifting from discovery to economics. The past year has seen a flurry of proposals aimed at bringing celestial riches down to Earth. No doubt this will make a few billionaires even wealthier, but we all stand to gain. The mineral bounty and spin-off technologies could enrich us all. Now, I would have normally stopped there, but I see the second paragraph says, but before the miners start firing up their rockets, we should pause for thought. Interesting. So expressing some sort of hesitation, Now let's go to the last paragraph. Space miners are often reluctant to engage with such questions. One speaker concluded that regulation should be avoided, but miners have much to gain. That consensus claims, okay, blah, blah, blah. Clearly there's not consensus, there's some hesitation, whereas number 1 seems to be more informative. So let's go back to question 49. Refutes. Passage 2 does not refute. B is illustrates the phenomenon. Kind of, it does. It talks a little bit more about it, so let's keep that on the side. C says argues against the practicality of proposals. I don't think it argues against because it's showing both for and against. And D says expresses reservations about developments. Ooh, reservation, hesitation. They are the same thing. I think it's D, but you can always go back, quickly do another scan, and then check it out for yourself. Okay, so that is the reading section. Now, let's go to the writing section. Cool. So we're going to go to the writing section, and basically it's a passage and then they'll have numbers in different sentences, as you can see. And based on those numbers, you either have to provide an answer or fill out something, blah, 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 blah. So the first broad category is expression of ideas. So let's go to question 1 of this first passage. It says, A, no change, B, defeat, C, outperform, D, outweigh. Okay, what are they asking us? Let's go to that same sentence. It says, given these solutions, as well as the many health benefits of the food, the advantages of Greek yogurt outdo, that's number 1, the potential drawbacks of its production. Okay, clearly it's a word, so they're asking us for a synonym. Outdo the potential drawbacks. Advantages outdoing drawbacks makes sense, so maybe it's no change, but let's see if there's another word that fits better. B is defeat. Kind of. C is outperform. That could work. And D is outweigh. Between outdo, outperform, and outweigh, I think outweigh is better because when you're weighing two things, advantage, disadvantage, pro, con list, you kind of create balances, quantification. So I would say D, outweigh, is the correct answer. Okay, let's go to question number 2. Which choice provides the most relevant detail? A, no change. B, supplement and convert it into gas to use as a fuel in electricity production. C, supplement, while sweet whey is more desirable as a food additive for humans. D, supplement, which provides an important element of their diet. Okay, clearly there's some change going on. Let's go back to that line. It says, they can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement, and people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. Okay, let's read a little bit before and after to get context. The sentence before is, to address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses for acid whey. They can blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then let's take the next, sentence 5. If it is improperly introduced into the environment, acid whey runoff can pollute waterways, depleting blah, blah, blah. Okay, so clearly the sentence before is setting up a number of uses. Great. So currently it says, people can make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by straining regular yogurt. So it's protein supplement versus yogurt. Cool, that could be 2 things. Let's see other uses. B says supplement and convert it into gas to use as a fuel. Cool. C is supplement while sweet whey is more desirable as a food additive for humans. No, that's too close. D is supplement, which provides an important element of the diet. So if you notice, the original sentence and C and D are all talking about food things in relation to humans, but clearly the sentence before says, to address the problem of disposal, farmers have found a number of uses. If they found a number of uses, they most likely will not be in the same category. So that's why B is my answer, which is supplement and convert it into gas to use as fuel in electricity production. Okay, let's move on to the other type of question you'll find in the writing section, which is standard English conventions. Let's go to page number 23 and question 16. Page number 23, sentence 16 is, Box, an associate professor of geology at Ohio State, believes that another factor added to the early thaw, the dark snow problem. Okay, and the options are no change, thaw, and it was, C, thaw, colon, and D, thaw, colon, being. So clearly this dude believes that something else added to it. So he believes that this factor added to it, and then he's stating the factor. So if that's the case, a semicolon doesn't make sense because a semicolon is meant to divide two ideas that could be separate sentences, which is not the case here. So let's remove the option and let's remove, so no change, and the other semicolon option. Now let's look at the two colon options. Thaw, colon, the dark snow problem would be C, and D is thaw, colon, being the dark snow problem. Now let's read that. Box believes that another factor added to the early thaw, colon, being the dark snow problem. That doesn't really make sense. The word being here is redundant because using a colon means being, therefore, blah, blah, blah. So my answer is C. Okay, let's go to page number 28 and question 30. So the sentence is, the article goes on to suggest that the most valuable resources provided by co-working spaces are actually the people whom use them. Okay, that's just wrong English. So let's look at all the options. No change is wrong. Second is, B is whom uses them. People whom uses, no. People is a collective, so you have a singular phrase after that. People who uses them. No, again, same. People who use them. That's correct, and that is answer D. Okay, so now going to the math section. There's a ton of different questions, so you'll be better off just going through a bunch of sample questions. But generally speaking, they're going to be in algebra, or they're going to be in functions, and there is a calculator section and a no calculator section. Let's just tackle a couple questions to show you the difference between the sections and take it from there. So we are going to go to page 35. This is the no calculator section, and as you'll notice, they'll give you some formulas at the top, so you don't have to worry about mugging those formulas before coming in. And let's just, super easy, question 1. It says, if x minus 1 divided by 3 equals k, and k equals 3, what is the value of x? Very simple, k equals 3, so let's substitute that. You have x minus 1 upon 3 equals 3. 3 transferred, 3 into 3 is 9. You have x minus 1 equals 9. If you transfer minus 1 to the other side, it becomes plus 1. Therefore, x equals 10. So the answer for this is D. Very simple, pretty straightforward. Let's go to question number 2. As you can see, question 1 was pretty easy. There are other questions testing topics like trigonometry and irrational, rational numbers, and a ton of those things, which you will get by just looking at them. Let's just go through the process of another question, a word problem this time. So question number 4. Kathy is a repair technician for a phone company. Each week, she receives a batch of phones that need repairs. The number of phones that she has left to fix at the end of each day can be estimated with the equation P equals 108 minus 23D, where P is the number of phones left and D is the number of days she has worked that week. What is the meaning of the value 108 in this equation? Okay, let's go through the options. Kathy will complete the repairs within 108 days. If that was true, then you wouldn't be subtracting something from 108, so I don't think that's true. Second, Kathy starts each week with 108 phones to fix. That seems really likely because you start with 108, you minus 23D, which is the days. You see the answer? Okay. C is Kathy repairs phones at a rate of 108 per hour. That's not true because if it was rate, you would be multiplying 108 into something, which you're not. D, Kathy repairs phones at a rate of 108 per day. Again, per something, you would be multiplying it. So between A and B, I think B is the correct answer, which is Kathy starts each week with 108 phones to fix. Okay. There's also a graph section where you'll have to bubble in not just the options, A, B, C, D, but you'll have to bubble in the numbers. And there's rules for all these numbers. Here are some of the rules, as you can see. For example, for mixed numbers, they have to be gridded as their improper or unreduced form. So you'll see all of them, just take a look. And let's quickly solve one of those questions. So question number 19. In a right triangle, one angle measures x, where sine x equals 4 divided by 5, or 4 on 5. What is cos 90 minus x? So again, you need to know basic trig, but This is a pretty simple question. Sine x actually equals cos 90 minus x by all the rules of trigonometry. So in that case, cos 90 minus x equals 4 by 5, which is the answer, but let's double check that. Okay, so it's very simple if you know basic trig. Sine x equals cos 90 minus x. Therefore, cos 90 minus x equals 4 on 5, which is the answer. So you can either grid that as 4/5, or you can grid that as a decimal, which is 0.8. Notice how this is fairly easy, so this section doesn't require a calculator. Now let's move on to a very quick example of why there is a calculator section. Let's go to page 49, question number 19. This is also a word problem, so let's just put our heads into order. A food truck sells salads for $6.50 each and drinks for $2 each. The food truck's revenue from selling a total of 209 salads and drinks in one day was $836.50. How many salads were sold that day? Clearly, we have to make two sets of equations here, so let's look at what our variables are. Our variables in this case are salads and drinks, the price or the number of salads and drinks that were sold. So let's see, we know that there's a total of 209, but we don't know how many of those were salads, how many of those were drinks. So if salads equals x and drinks equals y, x plus y is 209, right? That's fair for the number of items sold. Now we also know the rate. So for the rate, we multiply. So by that logic, we have 6.5 into the number of salads, which is 6.5x, plus 2y, which is, according to them, $836.50. So we have these two equations. And as you can see, x plus y, and then we have 6.5x plus 2y. So let's increase x plus y. Let's make x plus y 2x plus 2y, which when you add 2 to the whole equation becomes 2x plus 2y equals 209 is 418. And then you also have 6.5x plus 2y equals 836.5. So now, just doing the power of equations, if we add and, basically like subtract, you do 6.5x plus 2y minus 2x minus 2y, and you do 836.5 minus 418. You will be left with 4.5x equals 418.5. So now while I can easily write that, you can tell why that would be really tedious, so I'm actually just gonna use the calculator on my computer to arrive at the answer. And the answer is 93, which is B. So you can tell why B's usually take calculators, because it's not fair to you to do more written mental math for this section, but yeah, and then you might need to use calculators for functions and things like that. So anyway, here are just some examples of these questions. So I know this has been a long video, but I hope it's been helpful as to get a look into what the common types of questions are on the SAT, and more than that, also just how to approach each type of question. And this is true across most standardized testing, so you can apply these logics for the GRE, the GMAT, the ACT, whatever it might be. And if you found this useful, please let me know by giving this a thumbs up. I feel like I was taking the exam all over again by doing this in front of you. And if this video gets 2,000 likes, I might be solving other papers with you. And if you want me to solve any specific paper, let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for being part of the fam. Lots of love to all of you, and I'll see you soon. Bye!